Hi, so we are back in the kitchen today, and I'm cooking again. So this episode works well for by two channels, for both Design Lives Here and the Peri Survivor, my brand new channel dedicated to survivors of my brand new channel. Hi, so that's me back in the kitchen and prepping for lunch today. We are recording an episode about how the workplace can support women going through the perimenopause and the menopause. So this episode works well for both my channels, Design Lives Here and the brand new The Peri Survivor. The guest today is Morag Dearsley, who's an associate at Form Design. Form Design is one of the top practices in Scotland for workplace design, and done some of the most beautiful office designs that I've seen in the last few years. So that's me prepping. Morag is veggie, so I'm prepping a risotto, chopping my shallots just now, and then I'll start parboiling the asparagus in my stock. And then when Morag arrives, I'll sit her down in here, and with a glass of wine, we start our chat. So subscribe to the two channels, Design Lives Here and The Peri Survivor, and I'll see you in a little bit. This is us here with Morag. Welcome to Salvador. Obviously to you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I was explaining to our audience, what I'm cooking for you today is an asparagus risotto. So I've chopped the shallot earlier, just so that it got a bit less for me to do just now. So I just put the olive oil on to fry up, and then rice goes in and gets toasted before we start. The risotto is a labor of love. It takes a long time. You need patience. A glass of wine is perfect, and a chat with a friend is spot on. So today we're talking about how the workplace can support us, ladies of a certain age, right? And hormonal imbalances. I was explaining earlier on that Form Design is one of the leading practices in Scotland for workplace. So you've done a lot of work with some of the workplaces that you design. I've seen are really beautiful. I wanted to ask you to start with, when was the first time that you walked through an office and said, this doesn't work for women, we need to do something about it?
I think it's a combination of a personal thing and actually a webinar that I was on. So about 3 years ago, I went on a webinar, a women property webinar.
Yeah.
And it was women lawyer structure. And there was about 100 people on that for all over the UK. And it was just ended up being quite an open discussion about premenopause, perimenopause, menopause, and the symptoms. And I think before that, I'd had obviously been going through it myself, but I hadn't really talked about it, and I hadn't really talked about it actually in the workplace context either.
Yeah.
And there was one thing came up, which sounds really bizarre, but somebody said that they have lost their confidence driving.
Yeah.
But, oh my goodness, that's what's happened to me, and I didn't connect the two, and it was and I found it really embarrassing.
Yeah.
But when I actually dug a bit deeper and went into the hormones of progesterone and estrogen, and then extra serotonin levels, and so you have this fight or flight that comes up, and I think that just got me thinking, okay, if I've gone through it and I'm not talking about it, we're not actually addressing it in the workplace. So I brought together the colleagues. We have kind of knowledge shares, regular knowledge shares, to talk about these things, how we can improve practice. And that was really interesting. That just started opening up that conversation, started doing more research, and then I started to be engaged more in groups. And now we start, that starts becoming an integral part of our workplace design.
Yeah.
And I think what you say, you need to go into offices, but I think it's just because people don't think about it. It's not actually on their radar because we don't really talk about it.
No.
I think well-being and neurodiversity has certainly come more to the forefront, and that's great. Things like we're talking about maternity, having to breastfeed and having, supported spaces for them. But I don't think menopause is actually really included in that. So that was a great kind of pivotal moment, I think, really.
Do you think there is an element of it? People are not really thinking about it because everybody thinks menopause, perimenopause, hot flashes, where actually that's the only symptom I haven't had. But actually, it's really the least of our problem.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's about 40 symptoms, isn't there? And some are visible, are not visible. Yeah, I think that's the kind of issue, isn't it? That women might be sitting in a workplace and you have no idea what they're going through. So it's not that they're planning themselves or
Get right in their face.
yeah, they're actually got anxiety and I think I read something like people call it brain fog, and that almost just kind of puts that down, and it's more than brain fog. It's actually brain something and not remembering anything, and your confidence levels go down as well. So it's much more than that. I think when I start to talk about it people at work, and especially the younger female colleagues, they haven't thought about it. And I was saying, well, actually, it's a relation. Everybody, it'll happen to somebody at any time of their life.
I think also, I worked with this psychologist from Aberdeen University once, and she told me that 25% of women get it as bad as I had it. So the majority of women, luckily, we either sail through or barely notice or symptoms that are manageable, while 25% of us actually get it.
But that's a significant amount, isn't it? And I think even not even just affecting women, it then affects men as well. So either because it's your colleague or it's your partner, your mum, your sister, So I think it's actually about bringing up that piece to men as well, and bringing men on the journey, because I think knowledge is kind of power, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And people actually really...
Well, because if you understand what's going on in your partner or mom or friend, then that's half the battle to deal with that. Is when you don't understand what's going on, that you don't know what to do about
just like, I'm just getting shit's fine. Yes, kind of. That's really... I think when I started looking more in depth about what hormones do, they changed one of them what do.
They do.
Suddenly we don't have any of that protection. And there's also cohort when it's small but significant enough to see that can go through menopause early, or if you do medical treatment or cervical cancer treatment, you can then go into sudden menopause, which is pretty grueling as well. Yeah. So it's kind of a lot broader than people think of it. 50 to 65, it's actually a lot broader than that as well, when you think of that portion of the workplace now as well.
So go back to the workplace. I was laughing with Kirsten that she's here, that she plays that beautiful pod in this Salotto a few months back, right? And I said, this is fantastic. So one of the things you mentioned, brain fog is not just about forgetting things. It's like, I felt like my brain shrunk and I could not deal with the same input and information as I could. But also become neurodivergent, and I would get sensory overload so quickly. So that the pod is a godsend, because then it's this cocoon where you can calm your senses. But then I say, can we not have a curtain in it, so that when I'm having an anxiety attack, I can just close myself in there? Is there such thing? So when you're designing a new office, bearing in mind we're taking care of neurodivergence and therefore somehow menopause as well, what elements can you put into the office that can support us?
I think the first thing you really do is get a good group. So you can design, you actually engage with the stakeholders who are actually, making decisions and paying for that, because you can put in all the things you want, but if they're not on board and have got that knowledge. So I think for us, that's the very first thing, was engaging. What are the policies? What do you want from this workplace? Not how you work now, but work in the future. And bringing staff on board. And then when you're actually designing, it's really looking at, first thing is actually looking at the space as a whole, and we kind of call it sometimes like sound mapping. So it's like the hierarchy of sound. So and it's actually pretty common sense. Don't put a really noisy, big communal space right beside workstations. Map out in quite a graphic way where your main bits are going to be. Then give people choice. So just talk about having the quality. Some people won't use it, but you actually will use that. So have that choice, because one size doesn't fit all, really, does it? And even if you could have 10 people who are neurodivergent, they might all have different requirements.
Yeah.
And some people might be, I'm just sitting at a workstation or working at another table. But having that choice, I've actually today, I'm really feeling I'm going to work over in this pod, I'm going to work in this quiet room. So it's really about choice, about
So giving them the option.
absolutely.
And so what can we do about we had a panel discussion here with the BCO, and Bernie from Cameron Care talked about thermal anesthesia, where our bodies actually need different temperatures. So these new environments where we can't even open the window, and it's all artificial ventilation, things like that. That is actually not natural. So what elements can we add to the design of a workplace that if I'm having a hot flash, or I can go get some fresh air, or also I remember when I was in London in my job, I was always fighting with the boys about the air conditioning.
It's it's one of these things that every time we do staff engagement, it's probably the highest on the list of what don't you like about your office at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think there'll ever be an absolute solution for that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's giving you that choice. And I think obviously the workplace has changed massively, especially post-COVID, that most people don't one workstation, that's where they go and sit, that you have a choice of where to go and sit. And there's usually a place that will be a bit cooler. Yeah. And just really simple things like being very close to having cold water, having somewhere that you can go to that even you can have an ice pack or you can get a cool flannel away from the workspace that people are not looking at. I've got a neck fan. Highly recommend it.
What?
A neck fan.
Wow. Oh yeah, I've seen it the other day at the shop.
Because I woke up the hill to work as well. So I'm always really, I'm always like much older than everyone else at the office. And that actually, because it's not like, you see big fans on desks, and it's like, well, it's actually quite discreet and it's actually just a really simple thing. But I think it's just having that choice of where to work as well. And culturally, people being able to take themselves outside and get some fresh air for a meeting instead of going into a meeting room.
So you mentioned the fact that employers are becoming a bit more attuned at the requirements of neurodiversity. As a designer, can you help that process? Can you make them more aware of what, you mentioned staff engagement. Suppose when you get your brief, that you talk to the people and say, suppose it's the people-centric approach of designing the workplace. So are employers now a bit more sensitive to these kind of issues?
I think they are. I think I think the fact when they work with us, they've already taken that step that they're employing a consultant to help them, design their future workplace.
Yeah.
And part of that is actually that humanization of the workplace is really key. And lots of research has been done, Gensler research all over the world, and it's found that if you bring people on that journey and they feel valued, their productivity is going to go up. So you're not, you're measuring by humanizing your workplace. So it's quite a big shift actually for people. And you'll get more out of staff. And people are looking at, retention, attracting talent as well.
Yeah.
And we've definitely noticed, especially in the younger generation, there's definitely non-negotiables when they're coming to, we don't want lots of workstations. If we're going to come into the work, we want it to work for us. So I think that's shifted. So I think organizations have to shift along with that as well.
I was reading an article yesterday that mentioned the fact, what you already mentioned slightly, is that we need to design workplaces that work for everybody. There is this tendency, that's another talk I had done with the BCO, there's this tendency of making the office more domestic because, as you say, we want to get the people away from their homes back into the office so they don't just want a desk, they want a bit more. But then not everybody, this article was saying, I don't want to go to the office to make friends. So not everybody wants to have a communal space for having lunch with somebody. Just wants a quiet corner, get down with their job, and then and there was that I've seen offices in London that actually they created libraries in their office where there is silence.
Yeah, and I think that's become more common. We've been looking at that in one of our projects, and that's that choice. For some people that's awful. I can't bear complete silence. It's got to have some music. For some people, they've got that choice of going to work, even if it's only for a few hours.
Yeah.
And you can feel that you can concentrate and it'll be much more productive. And interestingly, when we did some staff engagement in another company, people see socialization spaces really buzzy and, everyone getting together. But a few people said, look, I actually, on my lunch, I actually want to go and sit on my own. I want to have that option of not sitting with 20 people. Quite like to, that's my downtime, have my lunch. So not making assumptions about what spaces are for. So it's actually bringing people on that journey, and if people feel listened to and think, well, actually, I have accommodated. That's great. I've got that choice. Come to this social space. I'm going to sit by the window, and by the furniture that you use is dictated. Okay, it's a small table with, one or two chairs. And somebody's sitting there, you're probably not going to sit with them.
Is materials and colors, how important are they in this sea?
I think they're very important, and I think they align when you talk about like sound mapping and things as well.
Yeah.
So you don't have to. I think we were saying, you get these emotional posters. It's a calm space. You don't need anything like
A beanbag and a motivational poster.
absolutely. When you come into a space, I think it should feel like it's intentional.
Yeah.
So by that it's got soft materials, immediately the colours are a bit calmer. You've got, this is like, tactile surface here. So that kind of sensory element. So if you want something to be really vibrant and buzzy, then that's how we would design it. So I think they're all interlinked, and they all have to be carefully thought through, I think, as well as the acoustics as well.
We had Anna Campbell-Jones here talking about the nook that she designed for the Sam H, which is a beautiful space. And one of the things she said is that black was forbidden. There is no black in that scheme whatsoever. And also they wanted natural materials to support the users of the space.
Yeah, so you've got, I guess it's something in biophilia. It's not just plants, it's about material, but it's natural timbers and patterns that kind of emulate nature. And it's kind of done in a subtle way, so you've not just getting just up in the corner.
Yeah.
It actually feels like one space.
And then also the importance of looking at something.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's quite very old research, I think, from that as well.
Yeah.
Isn't it? From hospital design.
I can't even think about working in a basement.
No, natural light is probably the biggest non-negotiable, I think, if you're in an office space. For doing if you, especially workstations or the stuff that you do daily, you need to have that daylight.
Yes. I did when I was still in Italy. I worked for NBC at the Winter Olympics in Turin, and I had a night shift. And messes you up. It's incredible how going against your natural circadian rhythm is.
Nurse at night shifts all the time, and your brain is just absolutely frazzled.
Yeah,
you don't sleep, and I think research last year you've got much higher stress levels when you don't have that daylight.
Yeah. So what you mentioned earlier on is that we don't talk about menopause and perimenopause, right? So is there anything that employers can do to support the employees and make them not necessarily make them feel more comfortable, because some women are very private, and me, I'm an oversharer, so for me it's not a problem. But some women are private, and there's an element in Scotland also that you keep your dirty laundry at home, right? Obviously not in my home, but anyway. So is there anything that we can put in place? We talked about creating different elements so that if one day I feel too hot, I go closer to the window. If one day I'm overstimulated, I go in a quiet corner. But is anything else that an employer can put in place to make people feel comfortable and help them go through this incredible shift in their lives? I mean, for me, it was a complete another halfway.
I think it's that cultural element, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
And I think you can have all the physical things you're doing this, but if people don't feel they've got permission to go outside or to use that wellbeing room or whatever, or they can go and talk to somebody. And things, it doesn't have to be somebody in HR, does it? It could actually just be an advocate. And sometimes what people have done is just having somebody that you can go and share, and they can be an advocate for someone else as well.
Yeah.
And I think the more that they'll always give somebody that will be able to have that knowledge and take that on. And I don't think mind talking about it then, so your employers actually will become engaged. If they don't know, they don't feel comfortable about it unless they don't have that knowledge.
So do we need some sort of training?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you do. And I think going back to that, when we first talked about that literacy webinar was a bit of a game changer for me. It was, and I was saying, so one of the key kind of themes this year for women in property for Central Scotland, that Dan Miller's put forward as male allies. And I think that's really important. I think that's bringing, the other 50% of the workplace and, whatever that percentage is. And it shouldn't just be building, empowering women to have that knowledge, but also men as well, because you've all got to come on that journey together, really, because otherwise decisions won't be made in the world.
Shall we talk about the amount of women that actually leave the workplace because of the perimenopause? I remember, so when was my worst? Probably 2 years ago, and we were about to celebrate the 10th year of Design Pop-Up. And I was still at the Arts. I did an episode out of there. And the event was completely sold out months before the event. The RSVP lists were through the roof. So there was no reason whatsoever for me to be anxious about it. And yet the 2 weeks building up to the event, I couldn't cope with the amount of anxiety I had. And I did think at some point, can I carry on doing my job? But luckily, I was already in therapy then that helped me come out of it. But how many women actually are leaving the workplace because whether it's brain fog or anxiety or what other symptoms they have, they feel like they are not capable of doing the job anymore? You mentioned about losing the confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's quite a high percentage, but because there has been research done, because there's obviously there's a new policy that's coming in for companies to support menopause in the workplace. But I suspect there's lots that go under that radar as well. And given that, I think between 50 and 65 is now the biggest cohort in the workplace, which I was quite shocked by. And then the next two steps we've been talking to days. So if we're starting to lose these people, and at that stage, most people are fairly seniors, like careers as well.
And about experience.
So that's I can't admit that there's figures, isn't there, that the amount that the economy loses through these women their job, and do they ever, how hard it is to then return back to the industry as well is huge.
Yeah. So the other interesting thing that Linda Engles, this psychologist from Aberdeen that I worked with, she said that of the 25% of ladies that got a shit time, 77% come out of it feeling completely empowered. And the channel is called the Peri Survivor because I feel like I am a survivor. I've gone through the most horrific 3 years of my life, and I'm still here. And I'm still smiling, gave me the courage of opening this place up because I said, I was having this speech at one of the events we hosted in here. And I said, I've got, now this attitude is about, fuck it, I'll just do it. I've already survived the worst that could possibly happen to me. So what the worst that could happen?
And it actually gives you a new lease of life. And I think that's quite interesting. I think in the positive sides as well. And think, I mean, you obviously can't speak for everybody, but I don't think people want to be treated differently. Just want to be supported and acknowledged as well, and empathy. And so if you have that knowledge and you know that, okay, that's why that's happening, and give that support for women to get through that period of time. And then you're right, you do. I mean, I think it's a general thing. You get to your 50s, you are more confident. Yeah.
So this is interesting, is the knowledge, because for 9 months I had no idea what was happening to me.
Yeah, well, because it's not suddenly you wake up and you can't remember anything. It's not, it's quite a gradual process, and it's when you look back on it, you think, okay, that is what is going on. Yeah, it's really, and a lot of people feel embarrassed as well.
But there's a lot of people that I had everybody kept telling me I was just stressed.
Yeah. And because people are making assumptions, aren't they?
Yeah.
And not actually. And I think there are. I mean, there's a few. At least there's more advocates, coming through.
We're more vocal.
Definitely. I think we need to be. Actually.
Yeah, we
and
need
I
to
think.
be.
I was thinking about this. I was talking to my mum about it actually when you asked me to do this, because it's a huge generational shift as well. So I think we're the generation that are actually starting to talk about it.
Yeah.
Whereas my mum said, "Oh, we just got ahead of it. We didn't even talk about it at all." So
a big nub of butter at the end of that's the key element of a risotto, a lot of butter.
So that's a massive shift, isn't it? Like they just was like everything just got on with it. That's
for me, it's Davina McCall that saved me, because she's the one that started this thing about talking about it.
Yeah.
So as the risotto is almost ready now, the last touch is a lot of parmesan together with a lot of butter. See, that's creamy. So let's give some practical advice, right? Both for the user, so the lady, and both for the employers. Well, the ladies, what do you think? If tomorrow I'm going to my office, apart from is there anything else? I walk into my office tomorrow, I say, okay, I'm going to change that. I'm not going to help me.
I think it goes back to the knowledge. I think being knowledgeable about why people get symptoms, because then things make sense.
Yes.
And if you can do one thing in your workplace is pass that knowledge on.
Yeah.
And set awareness, because then things start trickling down from there.
Yeah.
Because without that, you can't make change. And it's, lots of evidence-based knowledge.
I keep saying that to all my friends. I said, watch out. When you start feeling like this, and this, consider. That's my way of helping the girls.
I think it's sharing, isn't it? Because I think about driving, I was so embarrassed, and then there's quite a good doctor that I follow on Instagram, and he's a really big advocate of women's health, and he was talking about it, and he'd done an article on it. That makes sense now. Of course, I can't remember.
Because I follow the lady. What's her name again? She's really good. But the fact there is a man is amazing.
He's absolutely brilliant. They're just really simple podcasts, and he's engaging, and just he explains it in layman's terms to people as well.
Yeah, because one of the things that happened to me, I don't know if it's the same for you, but me is a constant battle with the GP, because even the women that they said they've been through the training, menopause training, they have no clue what's happening to my body. So I'm having to do the hard work of doing the research to keep myself right. But then the 2 times I had to deal with the male GP, then it was even worse. That time my anxiety was over the roof. My weight was also up. And I went to the doctor, and he said, well, let's do some blood tests to check the thyroid, the usual things, make sure there's nothing wrong with you. Luckily, physically, I'm incredibly healthy. So all the results came out, they were fine. And then 2 months later, I go back and said, there's definitely something wrong with me. And the female GP said, okay, let's do more blood tests. And she checks my estrogen levels. I said, why do you not check the estrogen? I am being on HRT for 2 years. Surely, as a GP, that's the first thing you check, right? And then he told me, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe you should go speak to a dietitian.
It just puts people off, doesn't it? It's just like you're not being listened to. Yeah, there is lots of research now, isn't it? That you need it's becoming empowered in your knowledge, so you can actually. Thankfully, I've got a really good friend who's a consultant who gave me lots of empowerment, what to say and what to what to do.
Okay, so last question. For all your fellow designers, what's one thing they need to keep in mind? One piece of advice to say, watch out for this.
Designing in the workplace. I think it's actually something. I think you have to have evidence-based design.
Yep.
And you need to have that knowledge. I think it's not about just put wellbeing women here. It's evidence-based design, because that is how you will then empower your client. And I think as a professional consultant, your knowledge, they're paying for your knowledge.
Yep.
And if they know that the knowledge that you give them is actually going to improve their output, eventually of their workplace, they will become more productive, they're going to retain staff. That's what you need to do.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Lovely. Thank you. It's amazing.